As CEO of a bank with probably the largest African footprint, you've seen growth across the continent. Mm-hmm. And my question for you is what your bank is doing to take part of this growth and what you see that's changed, that's unleashed Africa's tremendous economic performance.
I think beyond the usual story about Africa being rich in commodities, about improvement in fiscal and macroeconomic conditions, one of the subtle changes that's taking place in Africa, which is not always perceived, is that African governments are working to make their markets more open and are working to create bigger markets. A classic example and a more recent example is the East African Economic Community, where 5 African countries have come together to create a much larger market, to remove exchange control barriers and customs barriers, and thereby create a market that on its own becomes very interesting both to domestic and to foreign investors. Our approach has been that that has to be the direction that Africa has to go in the future. With 54 countries, it's a very fragmented continent and has to compete in international markets. As African economies and African countries realize that and come together to create larger economies, we have positioned ourselves to take advantage of that. So we see more regionalization, more regional integration, more open and bigger markets across Africa. And that's a fundamental trend that I think that will underlie the long-term sustainability of Africa's growth.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.